She burned his uniform in front of me, grinning like it was a game. My son's funeral was hours away, and HOA stood there, smug, as if torching his memory made her a hero. The crowd gasped, their whispers slicing through the air like knives, but HOA didn't flinch. She was Karen incarnate, a storm of entitlement wrapped in a tactical vest, the word HOA emblazoned across her chest like a badge of tyranny. This wasn't just about a uniform, it was about a town pushed to its breaking point, a mother's grief weaponized, and a reckoning that would shake us all. The town of Willow Creek had always been a quiet place, where neighbors waved and kids played in the streets. But HOA changed that. She arrived 2 years ago, a self-appointed enforcer of the Homeowners Association, wielding rules like a dictator's scepter. At first, it was petty. Fines for unmowed lawns, citations for unapproved mailbox colors. But Hoist power grew, fueled by her relentless need for control. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was rewriting lives. When my son, Ethan, joined the police force, she saw him as a 3D young man who dared to stand up to her. Ethan was everything she wasn't: kind, brave, and loved. He'd laugh, offer citations, help neighbors fix their fences, and once, when HOA tried to find old Mrs. Carter for her overgrown roses, he mowed her lawn himself. That's when Hoist's obsession began. Ethan's death hit Willow Creek like a bomb. A routine traffic stop turned deadly when a drunk driver swerved, pinning him against his cruiser. He was 24, with a smile that could light up a room and dreams of starting a community youth program. The town rallied around me, Sarah, his mother, bringing casseroles and stories of his kindness. But HOA didn't mourn. She saw an opportunity. The day before his funeral, she stormed my porch, demanding I remove the memorial wreath I'd hung for Ethan. It violates Code 17.3 temporary structures, she said, her voice dripping with false authority. I begged her to leave us alone, tears streaming down my face, but she just smirked. That night, she snuck into my yard, tore down the wreath, and set Ethan's spare uniform, his proudest possession, ablaze in my driveway. I ran outside, the acrid smell of burning fabric choking me, and there she was smiling like it was funny. The news spread like wildfire. By morning, Willow Creek was a powder keg. Neighbors gathered outside my house, their faces a mix of grief and rage. "She's gone too far," shouted Tom, the local mechanic, his fists clenched. "This isn't about rules, Anna Marie, it's personal." Social media erupted, with Justice for Ethan trending on X. Post called HOA a monster, a bully who'd finally crossed an unforgivable line. But some defended her, citing community standards and upholding order. The divide was stark. Those who saw Hoist's actions as a grotesque abuse of power versus those who clung to her rigid worldview, terrified of change. The town hall meeting that night was chaos. HOA stood at the podium, unapologetic, claiming she was protecting property values. Someone threw a shoe. Another screamed, "You burned his memory." I sat in the front row, clutching Ethan's badge, my heart pounding as the room split into shouts and tears. The conflict escalated over the next week. Protests formed outside HOA's house, with signs reading, "Karma's coming," and "HOA must go." She doubled down, issuing more fines, even targeting mourners who parked too long near the cemetery. Her tactical vest, once a symbol of her self-proclaimed authority, became a target of mockery. Kids spray-painted HOA equals hate on sidewalks. But HOA wasn't alone. A small group of loyalists, mostly older residents obsessed with order, stood by her, claiming Ethan's memorial was a slippery slope toward anarchy. The tension wasn't just about Ethan anymore. It was about what Willow Creek stood for. Was it a community of compassion or a prison of rules? The climax came on the day of Ethan's funeral. The cemetery was packed, the air heavy with grief and the threat of rain. I stood by his casket, trying to focus on his life, not the hate brewing around us. Then HOA appeared. She marched through the crowd, her vest gleaming, holding Ethan's charred uniform like a trophy. "This is what happens when you defy the rules," she declared, her voice cutting through the silence. The crowd erupted. Tom lunged forward, only stopped by his wife's grip. Mrs. Carter, frail but fierce, threw a rose at HOA's feet. I stepped forward, my voice shaking but clear. "You think you've won. HOA, you think burning my son's uniform makes you powerful? It makes you small." The crowd roared, their anger a living thing. HOA's smirk faltered, just for a moment, as lightning cracked above. That moment broke something in Willow Creek. The crowd surged, not with violence, but with a unified demand for change. They chanted Ethan's name, their voices drowning out Hoist Protests. She backed away, her loyalists shrinking behind her. The next day, the town council voted to dissolve the HOA, citing irreparable harm to community trust. HOA was stripped of her authority, her vest now a relic of her downfall. But the victory felt hollow. Ethan was still gone, and the scars of division lingered. I visited his grave daily, whispering apologies for the chaos his memory had sparked. Yet in the quiet moments, I felt him urging me forward to rebuild, to heal. The aftermath was messy but hopeful. Willow Creek began to change. Neighbors started a community garden in Ethan's name, a place where rules didn't choke kindness. The town held meetings, not to argue, but to listen. People who'd once defended HOA admitted their fear of change had blinded them. Others, like Tom, channeled their anger into action, volunteering to mentor kids like Ethan had planned. The Justice for Ethan movement grew, sparking conversations about power, grief, and redemption. Exposed showed photos of the garden, of kids laughing, of a town reclaiming its soul. HOA vanished from Willow Creek, some saying she moved to another town to start over. I didn't care. Her karma wasn't my burden. Looking back, I see the cost of HOA's actions not just to me, but to everyone. She burned more than a uniform. She ignited a reckoning. Willow Creek learned that community isn't about control, but connection. Ethan's death, and the fire that followed, forced us to confront our values. We chose compassion over conflict, love over rules. I still see his smile in the faces of the kids at the garden, in the neighbors who now wave without fear. HOA thought she could break us, but she only made us stronger. This story isn't just mine, it's ours. Share it, talk about it, and let's keep fighting for communities where no one's memory is burned.